All right. So I was doing my favorite players on all the teams in the NHL, and then the NHL announced its return before I finished the playlist. This is me finishing the playlist. My 15 favorite members of the San Jose Sharks. Now I'm using the old Sharks logo and the current Sharks jersey in this because I like the old logo and I like their jerseys, and in general the Sharks usually look pretty sharp. I do miss having stripes along around the bottom of these jerseys, but it's a minor quibble. Minor quibble. All right, my 15 all-time favorite Sharks, and this is a list I made this list literally months ago. That's the sad part, is that I've been sitting on this video for a long time, and I figured with today's events, I'm like, today's a good time to do it. So, top 15 favorite Sharks of all time, and I try not to use players that I've used in other favorites lists, but once you're down to team 31 out of 31, and yes, I did one for Vegas as well, it gets a little more difficult. So I'll attach this to the playlist. You can go into the playlist, pick whichever team you'd like. And there are people waiting for this really, really long Canucks one. I don't think the really, really long Canucks one's going to happen. But you never know. If the off season ends up being really long and they end up, all right, well, we're going to push back the season until we can have full fans in attendance. It'll be next summer. Fine. I'll do like my 1,000 favorite Canucks, which would mean I'd have to make some up because I don't think there's been 1,000 players on the Vancouver Canucks. Somebody's going to Google that now. All right, my 15 all-time favorite Sharks. A team which it's been known I'm not a huge fan of overall, but if I had to name 15 favorite Sharks of all time, and this is the all-time list and it's favorite, it's not the all-time best. And it has not changed as a result of Logan Couture's recent issues on Twitter. And it hasn't. That doesn't change my view of a player. You have a bad day, Just when you're a professional athlete, in my case, when you're an influencer, you have a bad day, everybody knows about it. Instead of it just being, so Shannon's having a rough day and 3 people know, it's a lot of people. All right, number 15 on the list, current member of the Sharks. I'm going to use a marker that works. I know that seems weird to use a marker that works. You know, I want to use a black one though. I'll use this one. I know, I'm so picky. I want to use one that actually has legible ink. I've talked before about Marcus Sorenson. Make sure that N doesn't look like a W at the end. And I have plenty of erasers. I just always end up using my finger. Apologies for that. So Marcus Sorenson comes in at 15. I honestly really like the player. I like his compete level. I think there's more offense there than we've seen to this stage in his career. But it might just be that I like the player. So I think that the speed is there. The hands are there. And maybe I'm seeing something that isn't. So maybe that offensive upside isn't quite as high as I think it is. But for Marcus, he's one of those guys they've kept around. And hopefully he sticks around with San Jose for a long time. Number 14. And this is where it gets kind of tough. Because honestly, it turns out I've liked a lot of members of the Sharks. I have. I'm honestly mildly surprised, but I look down this list and I think, yeah. And like honorable mention to Jeff Friesen, who's not on the list either. Friesen was pretty good. So number 14. And Pat Falloon. Honorable mention to Pat Falloon. And I'll throw in Ray Whitney, who's not on the list either. Number 14. For my favorites, Evgeny Nabokov. Nabokov was a very good defenseman, He's a defenseman, and Sorenson's a goalie, and today, this is just one of those days. Nabokov, obviously the starting goalie for a long time. I like the guy. He's in the top 15. I put him below the other 13 names I have on this list. That's how this works. Again, this is a really tough one to come through and go, okay, well, this is obvious, and there are certain lists that are obvious. It's almost like it's easier for me to do a list for my 3 favorite teams than it is for some of the rest, because I go, yeah, I like that. Well, I liked him too. Yeah, well, that one goes where? Number 13. Also a current member of the team, Tomas Hertl. There's some tremendous upside with Hertl as well. I do foresee, like, at some point he has to hit like a 40-goal season, right? I almost said 50, but I'll stay with 40. At some point, the goal scoring is going to be just fantastic for Hertl, I would think. And we'll see how long it takes for that to actually transpire. And we'll see whether or not Hertl has that happen this coming season. He's had injury problems too, right? So, but he shows in games here and there just how talented he is and what a good scorer he is. And it's impossible to ignore that. Number 12, another current member of the team. I'm going to go with Kevin Labanc. Kevin Labanc, who signed a deal last year that seemed to be suspiciously low to many fans. They were like, hey, this is cap circumvention. It's too low of a contract. This year he wasn't as good as last year. So I would honestly say he may have shot himself in the foot just a little bit, but or in Labanc where he puts La money. Okay, that was bad. Just forget I said that. So yeah, Kevin Labanc, not as solid this year, I thought, as last year. Still a very good player. I really like him. Compete level's really high. You guys know how all this works. You guys know what I like in a player. Number 11. Mike Ricci. Mike Ricci, I remember when they had a vote where he was voted the most handsome man. I think that was when he was with the Avalanche, though. I think he was voted the most handsome man in Denver. And I remember thinking, do women really find him that cute? And I remember for a moment they're thinking, is this the thing that's happening? Is this really happening? But anyways, Ricci, you can't forget the hair, you can't forget the compete level, and he was a pretty good goal scorer as well. Very hard worker and led by example. And those are important factors in a teammate, and those are important factors to a fan as well when you're watching a game. Number 10. Yeah, I'll put him at number 10. Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Vlasic, probably the all-time best defensive defenseman when you look at their careers as members of the Sharks. He's likely going to be number 1 on the list. And while his skill level right now is probably past its peak, I don't know how much of a decline we're looking at here. Again, for the Sharks this year was just an absolute, complete, and total disaster, so I don't want to say too much about how things went this year because it can't go that badly next year. But Vlasic, still really solid career. Shark for a very long time. Hopefully retires as a member of the Sharks as well. I would think that happens. Number 9. Yeah, I'll put him at 9. If I do this list again and say 3 or 5 years, Timo Meier may end up much, much higher on the list. Timo Meier, good goal scorer. Again, San Jose this year, there were seasons to forget for many players. I didn't think Meier had a season to forget. Meier's pretty solid. And again, goal scorer, competes. Gave the team kind of a team-friendly contract, but at the end of that contract, he's going to make some serious money. He's going to get Labanc. Oh, what have I created? He's going to end up being pretty rich if he continues that upswing. And again, another guy that could hit 40 goals if Hertl and Meier could be healthy the full season and they both reach their peak. San Jose could be a dark horse next year. There are issues with San Jose. I'm not going to pretend they're not. I've already done the 2020-2021 preview where I've discussed that as well. So there you go, kind of a cross-promotional promotion and all that of myself. Number 8. People know this name's going to show up on this list because I've talked about him a lot. According to Sharks fans, very nice guy. Down to earth, hardworking, Jonas Donskoi. Avs fans have found out. When the Avs picked him up, I said, you guys are going to love Donskoi. I haven't heard any complaints. He doesn't necessarily get the points and goals you might expect when you see him out there at certain times, and he can be kind of hot and cold, but the effort is always there. And that is a key thing. The effort is always there with Donskoi. Solid player, lots of effort, and I like him a lot. In Colorado, definitely as well. And I know I got some heat for saying, Donskoi, I really like him. He's one of my favorite members of the Abs. How can you say he's one of your favorite members of the Abs? He hasn't played there yet. Can I say it now? Because he still is. And Matt Nieto. 2 guys San Jose gave up on that Colorado said, all right, cool. Now, whether it's for cap reasons or whatever reason it's for, Nieto and Donskoi are both playing, and the Sharks are not. Number 7. Number 7 on my all-time favorite list. This is going to drive people nuts, isn't it? Because again, for me, on my all-time favorites, I would put Marleau at number 7. And I have very little doubt that next season he could be back with San Jose again. He needs to retire as a Shark, even if he does one of those sign for one day and retire kind of contracts. He needs to retire as a member of the Sharks. Marleau is Mr. San Jose Shark. It looked wrong to see him in a Toronto jersey, and yet he did pretty well for Toronto. And it's not all about goals and points. They didn't sign him that contract for the goals and points. They signed him for the leadership. And I would argue that leadership Marleau provided was missed by the Toronto Maple Leafs this year after they traded him out to Carolina to try to save some cap space. So Marleau, a good leader. At times in his career, he's been criticized as a leader for San Jose not winning Stanley Cups. I don't know how much of that you can put on Marleau, personally. I don't know. You guys can let me know in the comments what you think. Number 6. I have to have Artur Erbe on this list. And he has to be the number 1 goaltender for the San Jose Sharks. Erbe, I've talked about him in other videos. I remember when he was in Vancouver and saying, wow, this is the best goalie we've got. And he's gone. And the argument being that he was too small and he wasn't going to be able to withstand the kind of schedule you're looking for in a starter. And then he went somewhere else and he was really pretty darn good. Went to a cup final, as I remember. And he worked some magic with the Sharks as well. And he was one of those first members of the San Jose Sharks that I really found myself rooting for. Those first few years that the Sharks were in the playoffs, I was really rooting for them because they were always, massive underdogs. And the effort was fantastic, and Erbe, in my eyes, was always fantastic as well. Number 5. Yeah, we're definitely into the weeds on this one now. I'll put him at 5. I want to have Owen Nolan higher on the list, but I can't. Owen Nolan, I remember when he came into the league, first year in Quebec, left a lot to be desired, and there was a lot of question marks about Nolan, and maybe he wasn't ready, maybe they rushed him. And then the following season, he immediately just burst out of the gate. And in San Jose, he was fantastic. Owen Nolan, basically wherever he went, he was fantastic. And again, he went to the Sharks at a time where, I kind of sort of rooted for the Sharks. Of the 3 teams in California, they were the ones that I said, I'd like to see them be the best team in California. And sometimes they were, and sometimes Owen Nolan was at it was steering the ship when that was going on. Number 4. See, Logan Couture, we can have the argument about whether or not Logan Couture's personality is something that people really like. And, Logan goes off every now and then on Twitter. But Logan Couture, the player. Logan Couture, the guy who gets his mouth broken and decides, well, I don't need teeth to play hockey. Just wire my jaw shut, and I'll go out and play with a massive injury. Logan Couture is a warrior on the ice. And I can't take anything away from him that way. And again, it's one of those things where I may not be cheering for the team he plays on, but it is tough not to respect the player and his willingness to compete. And I think part of what's going on with Logan right now, as we talked during this pause, he hasn't played hockey since March. It's now August 29th. He might be wanting to play some hockey, and he knows he's probably not going to play until December at the earliest. I would totally understand if he's a little short with his temperament, and if he's a little antsy, probably wanting to go out there and play. This would be the longest downtime he's had from hockey that wasn't lockout related in his life. So, this has probably had an effect on some players. I'm going to say it probably has. Probably a dramatic one. So I give Logan a pass on some of the stuff that's gone on with him recently, and I still have him 4th on my favorite Sharks of all time. Absolutely fantastic. Number 3. Joe Thornton. Joe Thornton, when he came over from Boston, that was a move that was weird because Boston didn't let other teams in the league know he was available. So that led to other GMs saying, we would have offered up more than San Jose did. Really kind of surprised. I remember Edmonton having that opinion. I think Vancouver came out and said, we didn't know he was. So Boston did a really lousy job in that trade, not just for the return, but for basically making a deal with San Jose without shopping around a little bit. Works out great for San Jose and works out great for Joe Thornton as well. He would have an MVP season after arriving in San Jose. He was off to a pretty good start with Boston, too. It's not like he was playing like crap in Boston. And he's been the face, the scruffy face of the San Jose Sharks for a long time. So, and before you say, well, he's not the only scruffy face, I know, there's another scruffy face yet to come. There's a spoiler for you. But Joe Thornton, honestly, the trade for him to San Jose was great for the team. And I understand they didn't win a Stanley Cup under his watch. They got to a Stanley Cup final in 2016, but I can't imagine him in another jersey. This is why when his contract's up, and they, do you think he'll go somewhere as a free agent? No. And even the conversation of could he go back to Boston? He could as a free agent, but it would still look weird because to me he's a San Jose Shark. That's his jersey. Like with Marleau, that's what he should be until he retires. Number 2. Joe Pavelski. Joe Pavelski, his loss to the team, them not having him in the lineup this year was a major issue. The San Jose Sharks missed Joe Pavelski this year. And there's no way around it. Not having him in their lineup, not having him on that roster was a big part of the reason why we saw San Jose kind of fall apart. And he went to Dallas, and he had kind of a pedestrian regular season by his own standards in Dallas. And then in the playoffs, he's alive. So Pavelski, honestly, one of my all-time favorite Sharks. And now he's in Dallas, and I'm grateful he's there. I still think that contract's probably going to end up being one that Dallas regrets eventually. But he is still showing why he is a key guy. He scores goals in big games, and he is a leader, and he can do kind of sort of everything. And yeah, so Pavelski to me, number 2, which means number 1. And you guys can see this coming, right? I'm going to say right now the Kit Kat commercial is BS. It's not BS that he can't get it stuck in his mouth until he opens his mouth wider. It's BS because all Kit Kat did was they took the Kit Kat Chunky Bar, they dropped 15% off of it. I got mad and stopped buying them, and then they put the other 15% back on, or 20% or whatever it is. So all they did was make the chocolate bar the same size it was originally, and now they're saying, hey, look, we gave you more. No, you didn't. It's not on Brent. It's not his fault. It's a good paid advertisement for him, and it shows that he's still got the beard and he's still missing a couple of teeth. And Brent Burns, since he went to San Jose, he has been absolutely fantastic. Again, this year was not a great year by his standards, but you can look over a lot of guys who are Sharks right now, look at this board and say, a lot of them didn't have good years, which would be accurate. Their goaltender, you'll notice Martin Jones isn't on the board. I can give Jones an honorable mention in that I like Jones. I think that if they can move his contract somewhere else, I think it'd be better for him somewhere else. I think that, his time in San Jose, I think is probably due to be up, but we'll see what San Jose does in the offseason. But Burns, I do think can bounce back. This was a poor season by his standards. It was a poor season by a lot of Sharks standards. And we'll see if, in fact, they can bounce back. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video, and yeah, I finally finished this playlist. I got her done. Thanks again for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.